While most CPAs focus on what happened last year, our friend Dan Mullen at GTG Tax Planning helps you plan for what's next. He's especially sharp with business owners and real estate investors, helping you legally minimize taxes while positioning yourself to look strong when it comes time to qualifying for financing. And because he understands both tax strategy and lending, he helps you make smarter financial decisions before they become expensive ones. Discover how you can look poor to the IRS and rich to the lender. Book a short discovery call today at gtgtax.com. That's gtgtax.com.
Coming up today on the Nice Guys on Business.
Number one, because of the One Big Beautiful Bill and how bonus depreciation works, and or Section 179, if you're a tax nerd like me, you record it as an asset and you depreciate the entire thing in 1 year. Same exact tax effects, but that $2,400 expense is now as an asset. That doesn't count against you in mortgage qualifying income. I use the number 2,400 because if you divide that by 12, mortgage and loan officers go by monthly income. If you recorded that as an expense, that would be $200 a month lower payment that you could qualify for. If you record it as an asset and depreciate it instead, you don't have that $200 a month hit. Now, it takes a little bit more work on the bookkeeping side, but not that much more for the benefit. So that's one of the biggest tricks in my bag.
Cinderella story. Out of nowhere, former groundskeepers about to be the Masters champions. The Nice Guys on Business podcast. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, welcome back, Nice Guy community. Ever wonder why getting a mortgage is so much harder when you're self-employed? Well, I can experience this, and I can share my experiences over the last 40 years of being self-employed. It's not that it's impossible, but it's a fuck ton of work. So our guest today is Dan Mullen. He is in the front row seat when it comes to both sides of the equation. He is a mortgage advisor. He's a tax partner who's on a mission to bridge the gap between lenders and tax professionals, helping entrepreneurs qualify for the homes that they deserve, while maybe saving the accountants from the endless cycle of mortgage letter requests. If you've ever been frustrated by the mortgage process, and who hasn't, even if you're not self-employed, listen in today. Or if you're self-employed, you have your own clients, this conversation could save you time and money and a whole lot of headaches. Dan, I'm excited to chat with you. Welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here, Doug. Thanks.
All right, so 1990, I'm going to take you back really quickly because this was before the age of, really before much to do with computers were in there. It was a huge administrative nightmare, the paper trail of things. And then when we'd have somebody that would come in, we would have to basically roll the dice and do rock paper scissors. We didn't want the self-employed people because 2 years of tax returns, letters from ex-employers, letters from them explaining little things of unusual stuff on their income. It was like we wanted to, as self-employed people, show as little income as possible, but as of course the mortgage companies wants to show as much as possible. So much has changed. Where do we even start, Dan? I want to let you kind of lead the way here.
Should we start with the 2007, 2008 crash?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I didn't even talk about that. There's actually been a couple of bubbles and crashes since then, but 2007, 2008 was really a horrific time. Many before then, but not quite anything.
Some fender benders after, maybe.
Right. Okay. Let's start with that one. Tell us what changed in the mortgage industry at that point.
So let's talk about the cause first. The cause was there's a case to be made to where self-employed people pinky promising that they made enough money to afford this mortgage was a big part of those subprime loans.
Yeah.
Right? You could walk into a bank in 2006 and they'd say, hey, I want to get a loan for a house. I'm investing in a property or I'm buying it for myself. And they say, okay, cool. How much money are you making? I don't know, $10,000 a month. Pinky promise. Here we go. And out the door you go.
No docs. No doc mortgages. I remember those.
Ninja loans.
Right.
Yeah. And so one of the things that majorly changed is they put the clamps on self-employed people. A little too hard, if you ask me, but they made it really, really hard for people who are self-employed to get standard conventional loans, Fannie, Freddie, VA, FHA, all that stuff, because they tightened up the guidelines. Right. You often have to have at least 2 years of self-employment income. It has to be high enough. your tax returns matter a lot. And the funny thing is, I wish every mortgage company would keep a competent CPA on retainer, because mortgage companies ask us to write these dumb letters. I get requests from my clients all the time. Hey, write a letter that says taking the money out of the business isn't going to affect operations. I still get those.
Right.
They annoy the crap out of me, right? But you do them because, you want to help them out, right? Especially if it's true, of course.
Right, of course.
And so it's self-employed. They treat your employer. Well, you don't have an employer. When you're self-employed, you don't have an employer. When you're standard, W-2 employee, they ask for your W-2. They might call your employer to verify, he's been working here, whatever.
Right. Couple of paychecks, a couple of months of paychecks, stubs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. You don't have an employer when you're self-employed. So they think, oh, CPA, he prepares their financial stuff. He's their employer. I'm like, well, I'm just putting stuff. I'm recording history. I'm not,
right.
I'm not their employer. And so they lean on CPAs a lot. They lean on, tax returns a lot, because they figure, hey, if you're brave enough to lie on your tax return, we're not going to subsidize that by giving you a great loan if you look like you make $50,000 when in reality you make $250,000.
Right. All right. Well, talk to me for just a quick second about the importance. Now, back in 1990, I'm going way back. And then more recently in 2021, when I got a mortgage for a home, I'm living here in Ojai, credit score was important. Now, I've been a guy, I grew up with a mom that always said to me, nice Jewish mother, said 800 plus credit score. You have less than that, you're not doing well. So my credit score has always been 850, 842 one month, 843 another month, 839 one month. But for the most part, over 800 my entire career. That has taken me a long way, in spite of the fact that I show smaller amounts of income. We take advantage of every write-off. How important is in today's world is credit score versus actual income numbers? Or maybe they're both
important. If you make $1 million a year, but your credit score starts with a 4,
right?
Good luck.
Right.
So you qualify based on your willingness to pay the loan, which is credit score, and your ability to pay the loan, which is your income. And so those two have to be in harmony in order. But they both are important. By the way, kudos, staying in the 800s for a credit score, that takes work, and that takes deliberate work. Good for you.
Well, it's rather than the mortgage company isn't the one I care about. It's the wrath of my mom at 93 years old. She's still on my shoulder saying, "Hey, how's your credit score?" And you know what? I've passed the same thing down to both of my kids who are in their 30s now, and fortunately, they've both been able to maintain that kind of credit score too. I don't know if it's fear. I don't know if it's legacy. I don't know what it is, but it has been a great thing. It does make putting together mortgage documents a lot easier when you're not having to explain or backpedal for, hey, what's this judgment? Hey, because they do go, as the process they go through underwriting is going to go through all of those things that are on your credit reports, those little dings, even as something as simple as one thing that was 30 days late. They want an email or a letter from you explaining that.
Oh my gosh. I had a Comcast bill that I was in college, and my roommates were paying me. I think before I left, I thought I canceled it, but it was like a $70 bill that was late. And I was like, why does my credit score start with a 6? Like, what happened here? Turns out a stupid Comcast bill that was $70. And that once I got that cleared up, oh, hey, we're back into 800 territory. It was crazy. So yeah, credit scores, they're finicky, and there's a way to game them. Sure.
Let's talk about the process that you go through as on the mortgage side, because it sounds like there's two lines that you straddle. One is the mortgage side, and the other is the tax side of things too.
Sure.
Can we talk about the mortgage side for a few moments, and we'll talk about taxes? But I think the important thing is have people in my community understand, hey, what does it take if I'm self-employed? Because most of our audience members are either self-employed, side hustlers with a self-employed income that want to be able to use that income in order to in order to bump their W-2 income up a little bit. So let's talk about the mortgage side for just a few moments. What's the process generally start like, or what's it look like from the very beginning? And take me through a few of those steps.
It usually starts with the conversation, and we just get a feel on our side. And we've done this a lot. We know what's going to hit and what isn't. We know where the problems are going to be and where they're not going to be. And so we understand like, okay, what's going to be the biggest red flag? What's the thing that's on fire the most, or are we in good shape? So it just starts the conversation. I call it a discovery call rather than, hey, let's, rake you over the coals and get your blood
Right.
type and a stool sample, right? So
We always joked about your analysis.
yeah,
That's one of the things we need. And,
very,
we got to get that through underwriting.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, for sure. And so it's a conversation, and a lot of that conversation, once we're done with that, then we use that to start an application. And that sounds scary. We don't check credit before you're ready. We usually do a soft pull first. It doesn't ding your credit score. There's a lot of misconceptions about how much checking your credit dings your score, by the way, but that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But we get a good profile and we understand, and we come to an understanding like, okay, which kind of loan is going to work best for you? Sometimes, despite all we can do on the CPA side, maybe it still doesn't work for Fannie and Freddie. So there's alternative products called bank statement loans or P&L loans or DSCR loans if you're an investor that don't use your tax returns. Maybe that enters the conversation after we, take a look at those things and have a good understanding of what your taxable income is, and then versus what you really make. Because I know they're different a lot. I'm not naive.
So the beginning part, it sounds like conversation takes place. There's an analysis of, okay, let's talk about income. Let's talk about your credit. Let's talk about affordability. Oftentimes as somebody that's self-employed might say, well, I don't have any problem making a $3,500 rent payment. Why couldn't I just make a $3,500 mortgage payment? Which actually, the net of it is actually better because you're getting some money back from tax liability perspective. But there is a far greater criteria that you have to pass through in order to get a mortgage than you do to get rent. What is underwriting? Yes. What are some of the red flags that underwriting is seeing these days that we need to alert somebody that's in our community to if they are even considering? Because I know that in our case, when we bought this house that we're living in Ojai, California, we the first person that we dealt with was not familiar with self-employed. They didn't do any self-employed mortgages. So it was they qualified us, but they qualified us for a far lower amount than we actually knew that we could afford. It was by thousands of dollars a month, and we're like, no, we're paying much more than that. So what are some of those red flags that underwriting looks at when they are looking at somebody that's in the beginning stages of the process?
Well, yeah, your income is very highly scrutinized. How long you've had an income, your income history. They like to see 2 years of consistency, whether you're self-employed or W-2. And by the way, a trap I see a lot of people fall into is crazy. Is like, hey, my boss decided to pay me 1099 instead of W-2. Okay. That starts you off. You are now self-employed. Your clock starts. You have 2 years to go before you qualify for like a conventional loan. Right. You can get a bank statement loan after 12 months, usually, if your income's strong enough. But if you want like the better mortgage rates, like a conventional loan or stuff, you just started that clock over when you're self-employed. So that's a big trap.
So let's talk about the relationship that you have with processing and underwriting, because make familiar to our community that there are people that are new in the mortgage business. Let's say the refi market is huge, and there's a lot of companies that are just opening up, and they may not be familiar with their team, so they don't have a processor that's been in their back pocket for a long time. I don't mean back pocket as in they're getting paid off. I just mean that they have a relationship with. And then the next step is you have an underwriting team that has to take it from the processing department as well. So maybe talk about, you've been in the business for a long time, the importance of someone that has an established relationship with their team and they really know the ins and outs of the business.
So I actually am a broker, and that often ends up in lower rates because we can shop like 180 different lenders to find best rates. And so we know who's going to throw down. And we have built relationships with several different underwriting teams, and we kind of know their flavors and what they're going to look at, what they're going to scrutinize more than others. And so building those relationships is pretty dang important because some underwriters are not as amenable to, how do we put this lightly, coaching. Let's call it coaching.
Right.
Because on the CPA side, like I know tax returns like the back of my hand. I know those better than mortgages, by the way. But to have to explain to an underwriter what Section 41A depreciation is, for example, because they did a cost segregation study, they don't understand. Like they have to be explained that, like, okay, where is that? I've built relationships and I've taught, frankly, several of my underwriting teams how to read a tax return to do that. And there's a lot of trust in there too. But sometimes if this particular flavor of self-employed or this particular property or whatever is going to be more amenable to a different kind of lender, we'll go that way. And so it's really important to have that team. Processors too, since they know how we work and how we think. I've taught them quite a bit as well about, here's how to read a tax return. They don't really need to know that very much. Their job is usually to collect paperwork and to process that.
Right.
But still, the curious ones like to know, and I like when people are curious. So
okay, so not only do we have relationships that are important to have those established relationships with, whether it's a mortgage broker or a banker that you're working with, but the other thing is a banker or a broker that knows their products. So whether it's a flexible rate mortgage, or I'm sorry, a variable rate mortgage, or a balloon, or something that's a conventional or a jumbo, I'm assuming all of those things still exist in today's world. Let's talk about the different products that are out there and the way that somebody that might be self-employed might be able to get into a mortgage, but have to have maybe a creative product to help them along, and a broker that understands the idea of creativity and putting this process together too.
Boy, there are a ton of products out there. I like to focus more on the relationships and the goal, and the products just help us get there, right? But the products are still important because you have to know what works and what doesn't. So a product, for example, a real popular one I already mentioned is a bank statement loan. I get a lot of people who come into me because they know my niche. That, I'm self-employed, help me with my tax returns and help me qualify for a loan. And I look at the tax returns and like, hey, so you just filed, let's say you just filed for 2025, and your tax return says something else, something on it that a lender's probably not going to like. We probably have to go bank statement until we can file your next tax return. Because if your tax return can't get it, it's extremely rare that I will amend a return for the purpose of loan qualifying. In fact, I don't do it for the purpose of loan qualifying. The only time I will amend a tax return is if something is blatantly wrong on it.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm not going to shape it for just the purpose of the loan qualification. That can be FBI territory and IRS territory. We don't like those 3-letter agencies.
Let's stay out of that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I remember when we were applying for this house that we live in right now, we were in, I think it was either February or March of 2021. So it was right before we filed our tax returns, and they wanted, because we're self-employed, they wanted a balance sheet and a P&L for the year before we actually applied for the mortgage. And she said, look, I can't tell you what to do, but at this income, you're not going to qualify what you want to qualify for. She helped us, quote unquote, helped us understand the viability of the income that we were going to show. And so we did, which is legal. It wasn't FBI territory at all. We just showed more income that year. And that was something that we were able to do. But look, we paid the tax liability for it. So we didn't do anything illegal, but she did help us understand, if we were to do it this way, this is probably what we were going to qualify for. Is that something that, again, really gray probably, but it's an area where it's like, well, what do you do? I mean, isn't that the reality of how being self-employed can really affect whether you get a mortgage or don't get a mortgage?
So a couple thoughts popped in my head as you were saying that. First of all, I hear way too many lenders give tax advice, which they're not licensed to do. They can get in trouble for. Be careful out there. My gosh.
Understood.
I'm not saying yours did.
Right.
It sounds like he or she stayed in their lane. Awesome.
Well, what happened was we got the information, we took it to our accountant, and our accountant said, absolutely, you can do that. Why would you do that? And we're like, well, cool. We want this house that we're going to buy. And they said, well, you're going to be on the hook for another, whatever, 15 grand in taxes this year. I'm like, okay, if that's what it costs, let's do that, because we're automatically walking into a house that's got $100,000 in equity. So I'm okay with spending 15 to get back 100.
Oh, yeah. And oh, my goodness, for sure. And I actually, because I can legally counsel on both of those things, I actually built a tool. It's a spreadsheet. I freaking love spreadsheets. I don't know. At every CPA firm I've been at, I've been the Excel guy. So Excel. I don't know. I love it a little too much probably. And my people know that. Anyway, I built a spreadsheet that kind of balances out, okay, if we do some tricks to make your tax returns more amenable legally to getting a conventional loan, those are lower interest rates. We want to do that if we possibly can.
Right.
But if we can't, what will it cost in taxes?
Right.
To get that conventional loan, and is paying a higher interest rate bank statement loan, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right. Totally.
I have a tool that tells you that helps you make that decision with all the math in there. So it'll give you, here, it's worth it. Now, The bigger thing I have that helps a lot of people out is it's on my tagline of my business card. It's how to look poor to the IRS and rich to a bank.
Yeah.
There are things you can do on the tax return that do serve that purpose. Like I had somebody who qualified for a $600,000 conventional loan with $13 of taxable income.
Wow. Okay. Could you maybe just, I mean, you just gave us a big squeeze, a big teaser there. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I'm sure that
Of course.
brought to everybody's mind. How do I do that?
Yeah, so it's not available to everybody. I mean, there's only so many levers I can pull legally and
Right.
never illegally. That's never on the table for me. I have too many licenses at stake for that. But like how you record your debt, how you record the things you spend money on, whether that's an expense, whether that's an asset. Probably the biggest trick in my bag is probably say you bought podcasting equipment. Good example. Now, let's say you spent $2,400 on that. Maybe you bought a MacBook and a nice microphone, whatever. $2,400 worth of assets, I'm going to call them. Okay. So there's a rule in tax land that you can say anything you spend, if you buy an asset that is that you pay $2,500 or less for, it's called the safe harbor de minimis. You can just write that off as an expense. I'm going to tell you not to do that.
Okay.
Because number one, because of the one big beautiful bill and how bonus depreciation works, and or section 179, if you're a tax nerd like me, you record it as an asset and you depreciate the entire thing in 1 year. Same exact tax effect, but that $2,400 expense is now as an asset. That doesn't count against you in mortgage qualifying income. I use the number 2,400 because if you divide that by 12, mortgage and loan officers go by monthly income.
Right.
If you recorded that as an expense, that would be $200 a month lower payment that you could qualify for. If you record it as an asset and depreciate it instead, you don't have that $200 a month hit. Now, it takes a little bit more work on the bookkeeping side, but not that much more for the benefit.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest tricks in my bag.
That is very cool. That is a wealth of information. I mean, literally and figuratively, right there, nice guy community. So how do people learn these? I mean, do you have like a 10 best tactics in order to help show more income but still look poor to the IRS? Is there something that you have that's available to our community, or is it a phone call to you if they're looking at thinking about getting a mortgage? What's the process that people need to go through?
It's usually a phone call. I am in process of writing a book on that, but I have so many other things going on that I'll walk that through. But now it's a consult with me, and we determine, okay, what's going to look better from, on a full financial, basis. Is it going to be a bank statement loan with a little bit higher interest rate because we can qualify for it, or is it work on the tax return to get it down there and get a better interest rate? That's a phone call, or it starts with an email, whatever you want there.
Got it. Somebody that's in our community that is cash flow rich, but savings poor. Let's talk about that for a moment. Many entrepreneurs, the best advice that I was given by my dad is invest in yourself rather than invest in other things. Early on in my career, before any savings were able to accumulate, I used that advice, and any money that I made in the company, I put back into the company. So it wasn't like I was throwing $10,000, $20,000 into a savings account. That hurt me earlier on in my career, whereas today it's obviously it's come full circle, being 40 years self-employed. But at the same time, what do you say to somebody that's in our community that may be cash flow rich but cash poor?
So I'm going to step back and more into the advisory role here, because I'm going to encourage you to build up assets outside of your business as well. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't hold any licenses. I'm not getting paid to sell you a mutual fund or anything like that. Invest in something else outside of your business. That will help you when you sell your business too, by the way, because if you have that comfort of having some assets outside that you can rely on, it's not going to put as much pressure on you when you come to sell. Like, I have to sell this because I have to retire. I'm done. I'm sober now, whatever. You're going to maybe accept a lower price because you don't have anything to fall back on, or it's going to take longer. Your negotiations are going to fall apart, or you're going to think it's worth more than the market does, and it just all falls apart. Having assets outside of your business is critical for an overall happy life, even if it's making a lower return than you invest in your business. I'm not saying do that with everything, but start putting away reserves, because that will help you tremendously in the future.
Okay. All right. Cool. So somebody's in my community. They're in the process of putting together a either they're buying a house or looking at buying a house or getting pre-qualified. What do we want to advise them to do when it comes to getting in contact with you or talking to you about it?
You can call my office if you like. Our number is 801-477-5588. You can also reach out to our team to get you in contact with the right person. It's just team@gtgtax.com.
Got it. Got it. And for those in our community, if you did not write down any of that information, there'll be a link in our show notes how to do that. Before we wrap up today, Dan, I want to talk about the tax side a little bit more. So tell me, when you were
Great.
growing up and on the playground at 6 years old, 7 years old, you didn't say, "Hey, I'm going to be a mortgage guy and a tax preparer also, or a CPA." What is it about that stuff that you really like? Is it like a big puzzle that you get to solve?
Do you want to go back to my original thought, what I wanted to be when I grew up?
Okay, do that.
My dad was a pilot and he flew really awesome jets in Vietnam. I mean, he flew F4s and he was a bomber pilot. It was freaking cool. And I was so in love with that idea. Like in Top Gun, you want to fly around with your hair on fire, to the point where I went to go get my pilot's license when I was like 15 and 3/4, like the earliest I possibly could. I was set. That's when I found out I was colorblind,
Oh,
technically.
gosh. Oh, geez.
And so after locking myself in my room for 3 days, it did take me a while to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. But I always had a fascination with business. And so how do I understand the nuts and bolts of how business works? Well, you study accounting, which sounds boring to a lot. I'm kind of a numbers guy. Numbers speak to me. I can speak that language. And so I started off as an auditor at Big Four with PwC. And then I'm like, man, people kind of hate us around here. We're a necessary evil. And so what's tax like? That's cool. I feel like that's a cool thing. And so I transitioned into tax, and I've been doing that for 10 years now. And every time I come around and I save people money, I'm the freaking ice cream man.
Yeah.
And so not only do I love like figuring out how to save people money on taxes, which is deeply fulfilling. My gosh, I don't care who's in charge, whether they're wearing a red tie or a blue tie. I never feel like they're spending our money very responsibly. So I feel very comfortable helping people legally pay them as little as they have to. So that's very fulfilling. I love saving people money and seeing what they do with the saved money. That's a lot of fun.
So if I remember correctly, back in 1990, the company I was working for, which was called First Town Mortgage, which was a broker, they worked in Maryland only, actually specifically in Baltimore, but they were licensed in Maryland. Now, understanding before I hit the record button that you're licensed in 49 of the 50 states. So are you doing most of this remotely, all of this remotely? How does it work with you?
Yeah, most of it remotely, actually. And because I have such a great niche, I get business from around the country. We closed a couple in Virginia this last month, actually. Had another one in Maine the other day. I'm out of Salt Lake City. I get plenty of business here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we love working not worldwide. We love working nationwide with people who found value in our niche.
That is great. Now, would you work with primary residents only, or do you work with people that are looking for investment properties as well, commercial, or is it just residential?
We can do it all. And we have specialists on our team who are very focused on particular things. I happen to focus on investment stuff myself, although I know the ins and outs of primary mortgages for self-employed people very deeply. I do a lot of investment stuff too. And I even have tools that help you analyze the potential performance of an investment property based on not only just the cash flow, but appreciation, on debt service, on the tax benefits as well. I can do that.
Right.
So that's been a lot of fun and very fulfilling. I love helping out investors.
I remember I had a boss. His name was Brian, and Brian used to say we were in the non-refi world. He did not want to rely upon refi, so he said you can bring in a refi, but you must bring in a new home purchase before you bring in a refi every month. And so
Smart.
we kind of put our whole business together. 10 loans a month was at the time it was $100,000 to $150,000 mortgages. We would do 10 a month. We would do about $1 million a piece a month in business, and it was a good steady income. And I'm like, why would I ever want to be a real estate agent? I'm making so much money as a mortgage guy, but again, the full circle. People in real estate make a lot of money too. But we really enjoyed the mortgage business. it's got to be, technology must have really changed the face of the mortgage business because, we used to have our I guess it was a HUD-1 document at the time. I don't know if they still have a HUD-1
Oh yeah,
document.
yeah, they do. Still, yeah, they still have a HUD-1
All the
statement. Sure.
disclosures are probably electronic. I mean, I remember doing it. We got this big mortgage package through email, and then we went into a settlement office and did the whole settlement. That was the only time we ever met with someone. So I'm assuming that the process is pretty technology driven nowadays.
Yeah, there's still a lot of paper that has to have a pen to it. There's still a lot of wet signatures required because fraud can exist. You send an application in and you're not who you say you are.
Right.
One of the reasons they request two forms of ID when closing, at least in my state and in most that I know, is so like, hey, yes, you are a real person. You're not committing fraud by having what they call a straw buyer,
Right, right. Well, Dan, this has been a great conversation. I'd love to rely upon you as the go-to mortgage guy for our show because you have a wealth of information. You present it really well. Do you have a podcast also?
People keep telling me I need to have one. I haven't pulled that trigger yet. I've got the equipment. I feel like I just need production. I know you guys do that. Maybe we'll have another conversation, but it's on the way, but don't expect it within a month or two.
No, all good, man. And that was not a sales pitch. It was more of for some reason I was thinking you had, now I know you've been a guest on a lot of podcasts as well.
Yeah.
So I do know that you're a frequent guester, and I was thinking, well, he's got the microphone. Maybe he's already is a podcaster. I'm not familiar with that. Anyway.
It's in the cards. I've got a great room for it too. I just have to put the time that it deserves to make it work. So.
All good, man. We are here for you when you are ready. But if the answer is never, I'd still love to rely upon you as our go-to mortgage guy and our mortgage expert on staff.
No, we'll definitely have a conversation after this. Yeah, for dang sure.
Great, Dan. Great. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for sharing your message and your inspiration with our community.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate you.
Hey, Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Dan Mullen. All of his information, including access to his website and all his contact info, will be just right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
Click on the Patreon link in the show notes. And for as little as $2 a month, you can help support the podcast and get access to fun bonus content. That's like half a cup of Starbucks coffee once a month, a grande, double shot, maybe a little flavoring. Thanks for listening. I mean, seriously, you need to cut back on your caffeine anyway.